All right, let's see if I can provide a little more clarity to help you with this basic skills lesson plan. Students tend to struggle with this a lot, but I want you to struggle with this not at all. Students will learn how to complete a comparison chart. That is our purpose statement. So you can actually write it just like that. Students will learn how to complete a comparison chart. Now, we are teaching the process to develop the skill. No one cares in the real world if they can do a comparison chart. We don't care. But we do this, we engage the process, we teach the process to engage, to develop the skill. All right, so they do this automatically. So as they're reading, this is a higher level thought. So they're automatically comparing and contrasting as they are reading. That's why we teach these cognitive processes. This is not a complete lesson or a complete class. This would be 10 to 15 minutes. Now, it is the same as a Venn diagram, absolutely. But I use a comparison chart, and you can use a Venn diagram if that's what you want. But these tend to be easier for students to fill in. And if I'm using a computer at all, I go to the table function. I have three things here. I go like that. And then I merge these just like that. And presto changeo, I got that. I can put on anything, and there I have my comparison chart. So that's why I tend to use a comparison chart over a Venn diagram. So the input is where you just give the information students want to know, 2 to 5 minutes. This is where you're saying, this is what it is. This is a comparison chart. This is how we do things. It tells us, we use it to tell us how things are the same and different. And this is the graphic organizer. You want to keep it short. I would not personally ask students questions to keep them engaged. I would not do that because I want them to be fully focused on me for 2 to 5 minutes, and they can do this at the 4th grade level. I am giving them information, and good teachers give information. This is a lecture. This is a 2 to 5 minute lecture. This is called expository teaching, all right? At some point in this input, you're going to have to say to them, these are the steps. Step 1, look at the similarities. Step 2, look at the differences. Step 3, put the similarities in the middle. Step 4, put the differences on the side. So I want to see in your lesson plan, these are the steps. This is what it is. These are the steps. Then you demonstrate model. Now, you're not going to ask students what to compare. That would get them off task. You're going to have things in your lesson plan, something that is related to their lives, a non-book example that you are going to compare and contrast. And I find it always works best if you actually maybe compare two students. All right, let's use Jim and Mary, or an event or something that affects their lives, a non-book things. All right, this is how they are the same. And you're not going to ask students input here because you are demonstrating, you are modeling. These are the steps. Watch me as I do it. To ask their input would take away from this. Now remember, this input is only part of the learning. You want the input to be very clear, very salient. What you don't say, what you do not include is just as important as what you do. So keep it short. That's why I don't like, and I don't think it's effective. Well, it doesn't matter whether I like it or not, to be asking for a lot of students questions or brainstorming or whatever. You're telling them, you're demonstrating them. You can get their input here in the guided practice, but first you have to let them know what it is. And again, this is only part of the learning experience in a skills lesson plan. Use list or outline form using short abbreviated sentences. And I hate the automatic outlining because it screws up the margins so badly, and it makes it so hard to understand. I would not use that. I'm not going to deduct points, but man, it really messes up your lesson plan when you do that. List outline forms so you can easily see the structure and the sequence of what you are teaching. That enables you to teach better, but also to make the revisions that you need to do. And here I'm kind of modeling it here, aren't I? All right, guided practice is where you go through the skill together. You want to keep all students actively engaged here, and you want them doing versus watching and listening. And this is where you ask for students' input or turn to a neighbor kinds of stuff, all right? Not here, but here's where you keep them engaged. Find a story on D2L, and you're going to do at least 2 compare and contrast examples for guided practice. And for this lesson, think about 2. If you want to do 3, that's fine. But you're providing a scaffold, meaning structure. So for guided practice number 1, you would introduce the story preview. You tell students what you will be comparing. Boys and girls, we're going to read to page 6, and we are going to be comparing blank versus blank. So as you're reading, think about how they are the same and different. Notice how I've set the purpose, so they're reading with purposeful intent. So you're looking for a comparison that can be done with just part of the story or the first part of the story. Now, they can have just 1 or 2 elements on each side of the chart. That's fine. Maybe you want to provide scaffolding by filling in parts of the chart and say, read, there are 2 more things to add this chart. See if you can find it. See how we provide scaffold? Guided practice number 2, you're using the same story. We're teaching the process. Now they're going to read the rest of the story, but you're going to have them compare and contrasted something else. Compare and contrast something else. All right, in this next part of the story, we're going to be comparing blank versus blank. Let's read to see if we can find differences and similarities. Raise your hand when you're finished, and I'll be calling on students. Or, when you're finished, you and your buddies, see if you can fill this in. I'll be walking around. Some people like to have raised hands, fill in a chart in front of the class. Some people might want to give each student a paper chart and have them work it out with their buddy. You decide. Either one will work. All right. All this is leading up to the grand finale, independent practice or independent activity. This should look exactly like guided practice. Students should be able to easily complete this independently. You are going to use a different story here, and you're going to have a introduction to the story, a story preview, and tell them what they will be comparing. We don't want to ask them to find something to compare. You will always be assigning them to compare something. And again, we are developing the cognitive process so they do it automatically. I don't want them to look for things to compare. I want them to compare automatically. Students will then read the story independently and complete the comparison chart, and you collect them. When they're done, they can go and do what they should be doing in a reading class, which is practice reading. That is the work of reading. So I would say this thing would take 10 to 15 minutes, no more than 20 minutes for this lesson. There you go. Hopefully that helped.